we're going to take the key findings from, well, a whole range of fields, human communication, psychology, even neuroscience, to reveal the actual measurable secrets used by the world's most compelling speakers.
Right.
Think of this as, I don't know, the playbook for the people who make it onto that global TED stage.
Yeah.
You know, the ones who redefine what a presentation can even achieve.
And this deep dive is, it's so timely. It's really necessary for anyone working in the modern economy. Our source material all hinges on this one core, undeniable premise.
Which is?
Ideas are the currency of the 21st century. It's that simple. If you have a brilliant solution, a vital strategy, or a transformative vision, but you can't communicate it persuasively,
Then it doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. The idea just stays locked away. It's essentially worthless.
And the stakes here are just so high, aren't they? I keep coming back to what the author Daniel Pink observed. He really hammered this home when he said, like it or not, we're all in sales now.
Yeah, that line is perfect.
Because we're not necessarily selling, widgets or products. We're selling ourselves. We're selling our projects, our teams, and really, most importantly, we're selling our ideas.
Exactly. And if your idea doesn't inspire action in other people, its value is, well, it's basically zero.
So that's our objective today, to map out the framework that allows these ideas to stick, to really resonate, and to provoke actual change.
That's right. We're going to dissect the 9 specific secrets the masters use, and we're going to group them under 3 main pillars. First, the emotional core. Second, novelty and impact. And finally, structure and memorability.
Okay, so emotional, novel, and memorable.
We want to understand how they harness that deep passion, how they leverage the latest in neuroscience, and how they structure their talks so perfectly to generate those powerful TED moments that genuinely stick with you years later.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack this.
So we have to start with emotion. That's the foundational element.
The emotional core.
The journey begins there. The most inspiring presentations are not delivered by people who are just smart or, who have access to the best data. They're delivered by people who share a deep well of experience and an unshakable, passionate commitment to their subject.
So it's not about luck. It's not some kind of inherent talent you're born with. It's a mindset.
It's a master mindset, absolutely.
And what's really interesting here is that our sources suggest this radical reversal of conventional business wisdom. We often chase success, hoping it'll bring us happiness.
Right, the classic model.
But the data suggests the complete opposite is true. Success doesn't lead to happiness. Happiness actually creates success.
It's a profound shift in paradigm, isn't it? If you walk into a room feeling enthusiastic, purposeful, and genuinely connected to your material, you are already operating from a positive and compelling state of mind.
And that energy is contagious.
It totally is. That positive state shapes your entire communication presence. Everything from your vocal tone to your body language. You're not just transmitting data, you are transmitting energy.
So let's look at how this mindset works in practice.
Yeah.
I think the story of Amy Mullins is, well, it's just incredible.
Oh, it's the perfect example.
Here's someone who faced a profound challenge, early amputation, which the world would naturally, label as a disability. But she didn't just cope. She redefined the entire experience.
And that word redefinition, that is the essence of the master mindset. She didn't see it as overcoming a disability. In her mind, her prosthetic limbs were superpowers.
Superpowers. That's not just positive spin, is it?
No, not at all. That was a true internal conviction that guided every single one of her actions. It was her reality.
And the results were just staggering. I mean, she was so convinced of this vision that she ran track for an NCAA Division I program at Georgetown University.
A Division I program. Just think about that.
And then she goes on to break 3 world records in track and field at the 1996 Paralympics.
3 world records.
But she didn't stop there. She becomes a successful fashion model, an actress.
Yeah.
She even earned a spot on People magazine's list of the 50 most beautiful people.
It's an astonishing list of achievements. And what's fascinating about Mullins is that her passion and her identity are literally intertwined. The sources even note that her name, Amy, comes from the French word for love.
Oh, wow.
So she has this core conviction that just fueled her ability to transcend limits. It's all encapsulated in her quote. If it's your passion, then inevitably you'll succeed.
That is a speaker whose passion isn't just a talking point. It's the core of who she is.
Exactly.
But okay, how do you take that intensely personal passion and scale it up? It's one thing if you're talking about your own body, your own life story. What if your topic is, I don't know, a commodity? like strawberries.
That's the key question, right? How do you move from the self to the mission? How do you find that profound meaning hidden inside something that seems, well, mundane? Let's take the CEO of the California Strawberry Commission. If you ask most people what he does, they'd say he promotes California strawberries. Pretty straightforward.
And if you asked him what he was passionate about, he might initially give a slightly elevated version of that. Maybe talk about, quality or the growing season.
Right. But when he was truly pressed to find the deepest well of his commitment, he shifted the context entirely. He moved away from agriculture and toward human aspiration.
So what was the shift?
He realized that the true, deeper emotional anchor for his industry was the American dream.
The American dream.
Yes. He shared that his parents were immigrants who started working in the fields and were eventually able to buy a small acre of land. He recognized that the strawberry industry, unlike, say, the almond industry, doesn't require this massive capital investment.
It's more accessible?
It's much more accessible. It allows for flexible land leasing. It is a vital, accessible stepping stone to the American dream for new generations of immigrants and workers.
That pivot is revolutionary. He transformed a commodity promotion into this powerful story of generational opportunity and social mobility.
And that resonates on a completely different frequency than discussing, yield numbers or quarterly reports.
It really does. And this brings us to that crucial and kind of counterintuitive observation about authenticity. We constantly hear that great speaking comes naturally. We assume the great speakers we see on stage are just effortlessly charismatic.
That's the myth we need to crush right here. You see that person up there and they look relaxed, conversational, deeply authentic.
Yeah.
But the sources make it crystal clear. True authentic presentation requires an astronomical level of preparation.
It's not natural at all then.
It's the opposite of natural. It means hours of digging deep to choose the exact right words, to sequence the ideas perfectly, and to ensure that every flicker of your nonverbal communication is consistent and synchronized with your core message.
We cannot emphasize this enough, can we? Let's talk about Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, the neuroanatomist. Her talk about her stroke is one of the most famous in TED history.
Oh, absolutely. It's so conversational, so intimate, perfectly paced. You feel like you're just having coffee with her.
But that effortlessness cost her a lot of time.
Yeah.
She rehearsed that presentation, get this, 200 times.
200 times. And that's not just running through the slides. That's practicing inflection, timing the visual props, internalizing the emotional beats, finding the perfect rhythm.
It's applying what many would call the 10,000-hour rule to a single 18-minute talk.
That's a great way to put it. That level of disciplined effort is what transforms raw content into a polished, authentic experience for the listener. If you, the listener, perceive something as effortless, it's usually the result of immense disciplined effort behind the scenes.
Okay, so once that passionate core is established, the delivery system is the story. We all know stories are powerful, but why? Why are they so essential for leadership and communication?
Because stories are data with a soul. That's the simplest way I can put it.
Data with a soul. I like that.
Abstract concepts like discussing organizational transformation or improving national literacy rates, they're extremely difficult for the brain to process and retain. Stories turn these concepts into something tangible, emotional, and instantly memorable. They're central to how we define ourselves and our world.
And this is where the science gets really deep, showing that stories don't just entertain us, they literally change our neural activity.
Yes. Researchers, including Uri Hassan and his colleagues at Princeton, investigated a phenomenon they've described as brain-to-brain coupling.
Brain-to-brain coupling. It sounds like science fiction.
It almost is. This is a remarkable finding from fMRI experiments. Think of the speaker and the listener as two radios. When the speaker starts telling a compelling, unrehearsed story, in this case, it was a grad student named Lauren Silbert talking about her prom, they measured the neural responses in both parties, and they found that the speaker's brain activity and the listener's brains exhibited joint, temporally coupled response patterns. They were literally resonating on the same frequency.
So the listener's brain activity starts to mirror the speaker's brain activity. It's a true neural synchronization.
It's almost like a temporary mind meld. The same brain regions light up at the same time, suggesting they're all experiencing a similar neural journey of comprehension and emotion.
And they had a control for this, right? To make sure it wasn't just, noise.
A crucial control. When the same story was played in Russian, which was a language the students did not understand, the coupling vanished completely.
So it's not just about hearing sounds.
Not at all. The synchronization isn't just about sound input. It's about deep, shared comprehension and emotional connection. And that's achieved through narrative structure and meaning. If your goal is to influence behavior or instill an idea, you have to achieve that neurological coupling.
Speaking of influence that moves people to action, let's talk about Brian Stevenson,
Oh, the ultimate case study.
the social justice lawyer whose presentation earned him the longest standing ovation in TED history. The talk generated this massive emotional response, and get this, led to the audience donating a combined $1 million to his nonprofit.
$1 million from one talk. His presentation is the perfect example of narrative weighting. Out of his 18 minutes, Stevenson spent 65% of the time telling stories.
65%. He didn't lead with policy or stats.
No, he led with personal vulnerability and experience.
The core anecdote was about his grandmother, wasn't it? He talked about meeting her when he was 8 or 9.
That's the one. She made him promise 3 fundamental things. Always love his mother, always do the right thing even when it's hard, and never drink alcohol.
And he took that promise very seriously. He saw it as this unique, defining commitment she had entrusted only to him.
He did. He carried that promise for decades. And then, years later, the emotional turning point comes. His brother, staring at him, pushed back against his rigid commitment. He says, "I hope you're not still hung up on that conversation Mama had with you."
Well, no-
And then he reveals the devastating truth. "Oh, Mama tells all the grandkids that they're special."
Wow. I can only imagine that feeling. The feeling that your defining identity was suddenly just stripped away.
Yeah.
What was his breakthrough? How did he turn that around?
He took that moment of personal vulnerability, slowed his pace, and just admitted to the audience that he was 52 years old and had never had a single drop of alcohol because of that promise.
He's so open about it.
Incredibly open. But then he concluded by transforming that hurt into a universal insight. He realized the incredible truth that she instilled in all of them. He said, "I say that because there is power in identity." He was able to reach their minds and open their wallets only after he had touched their deepest human emotions through that shared vulnerable experience.
We see that same kind of transformative perspective shift with Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor again.
Hmm.
Most people would view a massive stroke as an unmitigated disaster.
Of course.
But she called it a stroke of luck.
Yeah.
That instantly breaks the pattern and forces you to lean in and ask, what?
It's such a compelling hook, and she had the professional capacity to observe her own catastrophic event in real time. She describes the moment she realized what was happening and this incredible rush of professional curiosity. She thought, wow, this is so cool. How many brain scientists have the opportunity to study their own brain from the inside out?
That intellectual detachment during a personal crisis is just astonishing.
And what she discovered was profound. For her, it was a spiritual awakening. She describes her left brain circuitry failing, leaving her unable to distinguish where her body ended and the outside world began. She felt part of this expansive universe.
A state she describes as reaching nirvana.
Exactly. And feeling the enormousness of herself, sharing that so openly transforms a medical talk into a deep spiritual exploration.
So finally, within storytelling, we come to the strategic use of unexpectedness. Dan O'Reilly, the behavioral economist, is a master of this.
He is. And the core principle here, as popularized by authors like the Heath brothers, is that breaking a pattern is the most effective way to grab and hold attention.
And the psychology behind this is fascinating. It's linked to something called the curiosity gap.
That's right. George Lowenstein's work at Carnegie Mellon explained why we're so drawn to these information gaps. Curiosity happens when we feel a gap in our knowledge.
And that gap is uncomfortable.
It creates a genuine, almost physical pain in the brain, which we instinctively need to fill. It's why we binge watch true crime documentaries or sit through a terrible movie just to find out how it ends. We have to close the loop.
O'Reilly's own story is a perfect example of exploiting that gap. He told the audience about his severe burn unit experience, setting the stage for pain and recovery.
A very heavy topic.
Right. But the twist isn't medical. It's behavioral. He detailed the nurse's predictably irrational process of painfully removing his bandages.
And the story's compelling nature comes precisely because its outcome, this irrational human behavior in a high-stakes setting, is so unexpected and unsettling. That unexpected narrative is what makes the connection stick in your mind long after the specific medical details have faded.
Okay, so that brings us to part 2. Novelty. It's not enough to be emotional. You have to teach the audience something new. Our brains are just naturally wired for exploration and discovery.
They are. John Medina noted that babies are born with this incessant curiosity, and even as adults, we never really outgrow that thirst for knowledge.
And that thirst isn't just a mental quirk.
Oh.
It's chemically rewarded in the brain.
That's right. When we learn something new and exciting, the brain releases dopamine. This is the powerful neurotransmitter that's also triggered by intense pleasures like starting a new relationship, beating a difficult video game, or the rush of gambling.
So dopamine isn't just about feeling good. It serves a functional purpose in memory retention, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Martha Burns calls dopamine the brain's save button.
It's a save button.
Yeah. When dopamine is present during an experience, it chemically tags the information. Remember this. When dopamine is absent, nothing really seems to stick in long-term memory.
So the goal for any communicator is essentially to get students addicted to learning.
That's the goal. By consistently providing novel, exciting, and intellectually rewarding information.
But novelty isn't only about breaking new scientific ground, is it? It can also be about taking familiar, even dry data and presenting it in a radically fresh way.
The SanDisk case study is brilliant for this. They were preparing for an investor day, and institutional investors are, notoriously tough. They want hard numbers, technical specs, dry financials.
Right.
The executives realized that just reciting the data would lose them. They needed novelty in the delivery.
So they chose to personalize the technical data. Instead of leading with megabytes in throughput, what do?
One executive showed a series of personal photos. His high school-aged daughters playing sports, beautiful panoramic landscape shots he had taken on vacation.
So he's showing vacation photos to a room of serious investors.
He is. And he deliberately connected the product flash memory to deeply personal memories. He highlighted that panoramic photos require 10 times the storage capacity of standard photos, concluding with the insight that this need meant 10 times more opportunity for SanDisk.
He wasn't selling chips. He was selling the ability to capture life's most precious moments.
Exactly. That reframing must have just jarred the investors out of their usual defensive posture. It changed the conversation from a B2B transaction to a human-centered investment.
And what was the result?
They reported that almost 100% of the investor respondents rated the presentations as very good or excellent. The novelty in delivery, that courage to show family photos instead of just charts, was the competitive differentiator.
We even see this approach applied to solve massive urban and social problems. It shows the power of novelty to inspire civic pride. I'm thinking of Edi Rama, the former mayor of Tirana, Albania.
Such a great story. When he took office, Tirana was a mess. It was plagued by corruption, high crime, deep decay, just a gray, demoralizing city filled with mud and garbage.
It sounds bleak.
Very. He recognized that the physical environment itself was draining the community's hope.
And Rama was a painter by trade before he became a politician.
That's right. So he implemented reforms that included a deeply novel aesthetic solution. He started painting the drab Soviet-era gray buildings in incredibly bright, dazzling colors. Sometimes they resembled abstract modern art, like a Mondrian painting.
That wasn't a policy shift. That was a psychological hack.
A total psychological hack. And it worked. As the city transformed from monochromatic misery to vibrant color, crime dropped. People felt safer. They experienced a renewed sense of civic pride.
There's that anecdote about the shopkeeper, isn't there?
Yes. Rama recounted asking a local shopkeeper why he had suddenly replaced his old window shutters with new glass. And the shopkeeper's reply was so telling. He said, "Because the street is safer now. There are colors, streetlights, new pavement with no potholes, trees, so it's beautiful, it's safe." The novelty inspired self-policing and a commitment to the community that political initiatives alone just couldn't achieve.
Okay, so if novelty is the save button, then the next step is to maximize that save by introducing a shock. Communicators move beyond simple novelty to create what the sources call a jaw-dropping moment. These are events that are shocking, impressive, or surprising. Neuroscientists call this an emotionally charged event, or an ECE.
And the neuroscience here is absolutely definitive. An ECE is the best processed kind of external stimulus we know of. Studies show that these memories persist longer and are recalled with greater accuracy than any neutral memory.
And why does that memory boost happen?
It's all thanks to the amygdala. That's the part of the brain responsible for processing emotion and survival. When the amygdala detects an ECE, a shocking or impressive event, it releases a flood of dopamine and other stress hormones.
So the dopamine is back.
It is, and it acts like a chemical Post-it note, or maybe more accurately, an immediate urgent alert system. It tags that information with the instruction, This is vital. Remember this robustly.
The most famous and arguably most controversial example of this has to be Bill Gates' 2009 TED moment on malaria.
Oh, absolutely. He was trying to illustrate that malaria is transmitted by mosquitoes.
So what does he do?
He opens a glass jar of mosquitoes on stage and releases them. He then delivers the line. I brought some here, just so you could experience this. We'll let those roam around the auditorium a little bit. There's no reason only poor people should have the experience.
Wait a minute. Is deliberately shocking your audience with the threat of illness actually good communication? That sounds like a really high-risk move that could just backfire and alienate people.
It's a critical question about ECEs. And it only works if the shock is controlled, proportional to the cause, and ultimately harmless. Gates didn't release infected mosquitoes. The shock was tied to making a profound point about global inequality in a high-stakes, controlled environment.
And how did the audience react?
Well, the source material notes the initial press reports of stunned silence were just wrong. The audience roared with laughter, they cheered, they applauded. They felt the high-stakes moment, but they were not alienated.
So the goal isn't to terrify them. It's to force them into a state of high emotional arousal for just a few seconds.
Exactly. And that brief segment, which took up less than 5% of his entire talk, became the most memorable, most talked about, and most shareable part of his whole presentation. It spread his core message about global health far beyond that lecture hall.
Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor also embraced the high-risk prop. This led to what some called the ickiest presentation.
Right. She brought a real, preserved human brain, complete with a 17-inch spinal cord, to explain neuroanatomy.
Wow.
When she lifted that specimen, you could hear audible gasps and expressions of disgust from the audience. But that disgust didn't lead to people checking their phones. It led to intense engagement.
They were hooked.
Completely. People were squirming, yes, but they were also leaning forward, immersed on the edge of their seats. The ECE, the visceral reality of the human brain, demanded their absolute attention for a topic that intellectually can be quite dry.
And then there's Steve Jobs, the undisputed master of the wow moment in corporate life.
Yeah.
His 1984 Macintosh launch is just legendary for creating anticipation and delivering a massive surprise.
Jobs understood that presentation is theater. After building up the computer's power and its small size, he created this massive, pregnant pause. He walked over to a small table with a mysterious black canvas bag.
The suspense must have been incredible.
Slowly, silently, lifted the Macintosh from the bag, inserted a floppy disk, and let the machine run a visual demo. That silent, suspenseful reveal was the first ECE.
But he didn't stop there. He added the final auditory surprise.
He let the computer speak for itself, and that line became an instant classic. Hello, I am Macintosh. It sure is great to get out of that bag. Never trust a computer you can't lift.
That unexpected combination of tactile, visual, and auditory surprise was pure, unadulterated ECE that became part of tech history.
And these principles aren't limited to famous speakers. They apply to high-stakes corporate communication, too. We saw the example of the nuclear scientists needing funding for next-generation weapons.
Right, they had to translate abstract data blast radius yield into visceral reality for lawmakers.
So what did they do? They marked the meeting room floor with 2 rows of tape. They simply told the lawmakers that anyone standing within the inner row would be eliminated by the weapon, but those standing safely beyond the second row would survive without a scratch.
Wow, that instantly translates an abstract physics concept into a life-or-death immediate reality for everyone in that room.
And finally, visual artist Chris Jordan is the master of transforming abstract, immense statistics into emotionally charged images. It's so difficult to process numbers like 32,000 or 40 million.
The brain just can't grasp them.
Exactly. Jordan's work forces us to feel the number. For instance, he wanted to represent the 32,000 breast augmentation surgeries performed in the U.S. each month. Instead of just printing the number, he presented a photograph containing 32,000 tightly packed Barbie dolls.
The visual is so much more powerful.
When you see that sheer volume of dolls, often associated with youth and beauty, the emotional weight of that statistic, especially knowing many procedures are done on women under 21, it just hits you immediately.
Or his work on consumer consumption. He photographed a stack of 410,000 coffee cups,
representing just 15 minutes of U.S. cup consumption. Then he scaled it up to a day's worth of stack of 40 million cups, so immense that the Statue of Liberty was dwarfed by it. That powerful visual scale provides an unforgettable, chilling reference point that sticks far better than reading the number on a sheet of paper.
Okay, so the brain loves novelty, it loves surprise, and crucially, it loves humor. When you manage to combine humor and novelty, you have what the sources call presentation gold.
Absolutely.
Huh.
Look at Sir Ken Robinson's talk on why schools kill creativity. It is the most popular TED Talk ever, largely because of his strategic and almost immediate use of humor to disarm the audience on a high-stakes, controversial subject.
He starts right away with a self-deprecating joke that connects him to the audience. He says, if you're at a dinner party and you say you work in education, actually, you're not often at dinner parties, frankly, if you work in education.
This is instant pattern break, and a quick shot of connection through shared experience.
And psychologically, humor is a sophisticated social tactic.
It is. Rod A. Martin's research defines it as an ingratiation tactic. Humor helps people be accepted into a group, and it subtly reinforces status. People who are perceived as humorous are viewed as more intelligent, perceptive, friendly, and emotionally stable.
That's a massive list of desirable traits you can acquire just by knowing how to land a joke. And we see this reflected in personal interactions, too. On popular dating sites, a sense of humor ranks as the most desirable trait in a potential mate for over 80% of members.
It ranks higher than physical attraction or educational level. And while your corporate presentation isn't a dating profile, you are seeking the audience's attention, devotion, and respect. And humor is a powerful tool to secure that attention. It signals confidence and intelligence.
Humor also becomes critical when dealing with complex or traumatic subjects where tension is high. It can serve as a vital emotional pressure valve.
It can. It relieves trauma or deflects controversy. We saw millions turn to shows like Saturday Night Live for relief after major national tragedies.
Rose George, the journalist focused on the horrifying subject of global sanitation and open defecation, used this blend of humor and shock with incredible dexterity.
She did. She started her segment with a humorous stock photo of diarrhea. A woman outside a toilet, eyes clenched, fists tight, which got a laugh.
But she immediately cut the laughter short and advanced to the shocking reality.
She followed up with a slide of a man crying in a field, detailing the heartbreaking story of 9-month-old Maria Saleh, who died from the disease in just 3 days.
So it's a careful pacing of that sequence, laughter, then shock, then profound stakes.
Exactly. That ensures maximum impact. She concluded by labeling diarrhea a very potent weapon of mass destruction. That strategic creative blend allowed the audience to relax enough to listen to the brutal truth and then instantly focus them on the heartbreaking need for a solution.
Okay, so we move now to the third and final pillar, memorability. No matter how emotional or novel your content is, if your structure is poor, your message just will not stick.
It'll just evaporate.
And we have to start with the most famous constraint in modern public speaking. The 18-minute rule. Why is it so rigid?
It's not an arbitrary artistic choice. It is absolutely backed by the science of cognitive constraints, specifically how our brains manage energy. The brain, though it's only about 3 pounds, is a voracious energy consumer.
And processing new, dense information requires an inordinate amount of glucose, the brain's primary fuel.
Right, and if you've ever sat through a marathon presentation or a long exam, you know the feeling of cognitive exhaustion, the SAT hangover that kicks in after long stretches of intense focus.
Definitely.
Roy Baumeister's research is key here. He found that non-related mental activities like resisting the urge to eat a piece of chocolate, focusing on a complex math puzzle, or listening intently to new, detailed content all draw on the exact same finite pool of energy, glucose.
So even the small act of resisting distraction depletes the same energy we need for comprehension.
Precisely. Baumeister proved this by having volunteers watch a video while distracting words flashed on the screen. Those instructed to actively ignore the words experienced a significant drop in brain glucose.
And once you've committed to that focus, structure dictates how well the information is retained. This is where the time-tested rule of 3 becomes paramount.
The human mind can only comfortably process and store about 3 distinct pieces of information in short-term memory before retention just drops off dramatically. This principle is woven through centuries of memorable communication.
Think about the foundational elements of Western democracy: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Or the French motto, liberty, equality, and fraternity. It's a perfect mental structure.
And the great speakers adhere to this discipline. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor divided her entire talk into 3 distinct, manageable 6-minute sections.
That's right. First, the brain circuitry. Second, the day of the stroke. And third, the profound insight the experience offered. 3 acts.
And Steve Jobs' famous 2005 Stanford commencement speech followed this structure perfectly, built entirely around 3 core stories.
connect the dots, love and loss and death. Each story supported the overarching central theme, do what you love. This structured limitation is what makes his message so universally relatable and incredibly sticky.
So if constraint gives us the structure, then multisensory experiences dictate the long-term retention. This is where we move beyond words alone.
Yes. Our sources reference Alan Pivio's dual coding theory, which is crucial for understanding why we need visuals. The theory states that the retention of information goes up dramatically,
How much?
from about 10% when only words are used to a massive 65% when words are combined with pictures.
A 55% jump, that's profound.
It's huge. And it happens because the brain builds two separate mental representations of an explanation, a verbal model and a visual model, which are stored independently. Pictures are more richly stamped in our brains and become much easier to recall, especially when dealing with complex or unfamiliar concepts.
Which is why Al Gore's climate change presentation was so effective. He's dealing with immensely complex, invisible science, the greenhouse effect.
He knew he couldn't rely on text alone, so he simplified it using simple animation and easily digestible graphics. His slides showed yellow light waves representing solar energy hitting the Earth, and then red infrared lines trying to leave, only to get trapped by a thickening gray layer of atmosphere.
He translated complex physics into an easily observed visual story.
Exactly. And the ocean explorer Robert Ballard took this visual approach to the ultimate extreme in his 2008 TED presentation.
He used 57 slides with 0 words.
0 words, not a single slide had text. He explicitly told the audience he was prioritizing the visual language of his exploration. He said, "I'm storytelling, not lecturing." He allowed the images of the deep ocean, the research vessels, and the discoveries to carry the emotional and informational weight.
Even Bill Gates, dealing with a massive data set of global warming, demonstrated the power of visual simplicity.
He used a formula displayed over an image of cracked, drought-ridden Earth. Sigma CO2 leads to temperature increase, which leads to negative effects. 7 seconds, one visual, and the entire core argument is communicated.
And we see visuals used to establish profound conceptual metaphors, too. David Christian, in his talk on the history of our world, started with a video that was intentionally jarring.
It was an egg unscrambling itself, the yolk and white reforming and returning to the shell.
That must have made the audience profoundly uncomfortable. Why would he use a reverse video?
Christian explained that the video felt inherently strange because it violates the second law of thermodynamics, or the law of entropy, the idea that the universe naturally moves from order to lack of structure. By making the audience feel that visual discomfort, he instantly planted a profound, unforgettable metaphor for his topic.
Beyond sight, communicators use tactile and participatory demonstrations that involve high-stakes visual drama. We had the incredible story of Michael Pritchard.
The inventor of the portable lifesaver water filter, he created it after the 2004 tsunami and Hurricane Katrina exposed the desperate need for clean water access.
And his demonstration is a masterclass in ECE and tangible proof.
It is. He brought a large fish tank of murky Thames River water onto the stage. He then dramatically heightened the emotional stakes by adding contaminants in front of the audience. Pond water, sewage runoff.
Yeah, and then the final touch.
A truly disgusting item, a gift from a friend of mine's rabbit droppings. The audience sees the filth escalating in real time.
The moment of truth must have been pure theater.
It was. He scooped the contaminated water, filtered it instantly with his device, and then drank the crystal clear water. Then the curator, Chris Anderson, also drank it. The immediacy, the drama, and the undeniable proof made the technology instantly tangible and unforgettable. No amount of text on a slide could have achieved that level of trust.
And finally, a simpler prop used masterfully. Amanda Palmer, the punk rocker, used a simple milk crate to transport her audience to her life as the 8-foot bride street performer.
She delivered the first 3 minutes of her talk standing on that milk crate, physically reliving the experience. As soon as she finished describing her time as a statue and transitioned into her musical career, she walked off the box.
And the crate remained on stage.
A powerful, silent, and tactile metaphor that physically connected the audience to her narrative journey.
We have the emotion, the novelty, and the structure. Now we have to address the final element, delivery. Even the best content fails if the speaker's presence doesn't seal the deal. We know preparation is essential, but what about the physical state?
Successful speakers understand that the mind and body are intrinsically linked. They often use intense physical rituals to boost energy and change their internal physiological state before taking the stage.
Like Tony Robbins. He can command thousands of people for days on end.
His pre-speaking ritual, often lasting 10 minutes, is highly energetic, jumping, spinning, using affirmations. He's activating his sympathetic nervous system. His core teaching is that energized movement is the fastest way to change your state of mind.
Beyond energy, body language communicates authority. And it doesn't just affect the audience, it changes how we view ourselves.
The science confirms this. A study found that volunteers who sat straight while filling out a mock job application reviewed themselves far more favorably. They wrote better, more confident self-assessments than those who slouched. Standing tall creates a foundational sense of confidence before you even open your mouth.
This feeds directly into Amy Cuddy's pioneering research on power posing.
Cuddy, a social psychologist at Harvard, found that expansive open stances like putting your hands on your hips in a Wonder Woman pose physically change your chemistry. These poses increase testosterone, the confidence hormone, and lower cortisol, the stress hormone.
So the famous advice, fake it till you become it, is literally true on a chemical level.
Yes, the physical pose changes your body's chemistry, which in turn changes your mind. That shift in confidence changes your behavior and ultimately your outcomes. You feel more confident because your hormones are telling you that you are.
We also see the use of gestures as a mental tool, not just a visual flourish.
Researchers have found that rigorous, complex thinkers simply cannot stop using complex gestures. Gesturing actually aids cognition. It frees up their mental capacities.
Look at Colin Powell. He started his TED Talk with his hands politely clasped, but within 10 seconds, his hands came apart and didn't touch again for the next 17 minutes.
He utilized a natural, continuous variety of gestures, supporting the complexity of his ideas. Similarly, former Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm was a master of using bold, expansive gestures, keeping them within her power sphere, the area in front of her chest and head, to sell her clean energy policies. Her confident posture and eager nonverbal language added immense authority to her arguments.
But again, let's crush the myth that any of this is innate. This mastery comes from relentless practice and a fierce commitment to self-correction.
The story of Warren Buffett is the perfect antidote to the fear of public speaking. He was genuinely terrified of it. He was so crippled by the fear that he dropped a college course he had enrolled in.
A man of his intellectual caliber, terrified of talking. That's hard to imagine.
It is, but he recognized that this fear was the primary obstacle blocking him from reaching his full potential. He only overcame this crippling fear at age 21 by enrolling in a Dale Carnegie course. He understood that commitment to his ideas demanded commitment to his communication skills.
Richard Branson had a similar experience, where he mumbled incoherently during an early speech, calling it one of the most embarrassing moments of his life.
That failure drove him to commit to relentless practice. The great lesson here is that good speakers are made, not born. If you bring conviction and passion, the audience will be far more forgiving of minor mistakes, but you have to put in the mechanical preparation first.
And for those common distracting nervous habits, the fidgeting, the toe tapping, the face touching, which plague even experienced executives, what's the solution?
Self-awareness is the only cure. One technology executive who was preparing to present to Larry Ellison, who is known as an intimidating presence, constantly fidgeted. The only way he eliminated those annoying habits was by watching video of himself repeatedly. The critical, objective eye of self-review allowed him to eliminate the visual noise and deliver a confident, successful, habit-free presentation.
So the ultimate commitment here is to practice so relentlessly that the mechanical aspects of your delivery, the gestures, the pace, the body language, become completely automatic.
Exactly. That frees your conscious mind to focus entirely on the emotional connection and the story you are sharing.
We've covered the entire framework now, establishing a powerful emotional core, generating novelty and impact through ECEs and humor, and finally, building a memorable structure and delivery rooted in cognitive science. These techniques aren't just tricks. They are scientifically proven ways the human brain processes, retains, and is motivated to act on information.
And that leads us to the final thought on mastery and purpose. Remember the advice from Oprah Winfrey when someone told her they wanted to be the next Oprah? She immediately corrected them, "No, you don't." She explained that successful people identify their core purpose, define their unique lane, and relentlessly follow that purpose to become the absolute best representation of themselves.
Your commitment to your idea must always match the rigor of your preparation and the authenticity of your emotional core.
The key.
So as you go forward, preparing your next high-stakes presentation or defining your next big idea, let's leave you with one final, provocative insight drawn directly from neuroscience. The brain, at a fundamental level, cannot tell the difference between what it actually sees and what it vividly imagines.
Studies confirm that. The visual cortex of your brain is activated whether you are physically seeing an external event or just intensely visualizing it internally. The implications for communicators are massive.
Think about speakers like Janine Shepherd, the injured cross-country skier, who gave a phenomenal TEDx talk without a single slide. She painted a picture with words, describing her perfect autumn day bike ride. The sun shining in her face, the smell of eucalyptus, the cold mountain air burning her lungs before the accident that changed her life.
She and photographer Lisa Christine are masters of descriptive language. They didn't show you a slide of the bike ride, they planted that powerful sensory image directly into your mind.
So the question for you is this: how can you use that kind of evocative, descriptive language, even without a slide deck, or even when talking to a skeptical, analytical audience, to plant powerful, actionable images in your listeners' minds?
Your idea truly is the currency of the 21st century, and it's absolutely worth the rigorous practice and profound emotional commitment required to make it stick forever.